no one's batting an eye, no one's, and I share that. I know,
Anymore.
I'm like, so two, and the reason why I even share that for two reasons. One, I realize how like even from a traumatic standpoint, like how when we, and I liken that to, like, let's say if I'm leaving America, when you
Mhm.
get accustomed to living life a certain way, it's
Mhm.
so good when you can like stop and be like, oh snap, it's not like this here. Because that moment was so pivotal to being here, because I was like, oh shoot, I've almost like in my body, I've just gotten so accustomed to, like, that's what it is. Like, someone's going to be looking at me, someone's going to take a picture. So I was so happy to have that realization of like, oh, I really just kind of like taken that on. So even if you're watching, it's the same way like when you're moving from like whatever country and you're moving abroad, like you don't even realize how you've been operating in some type of survival way, or just like, oh, like this just was happened. But I think what the growth happens is when you realize like, oh, I this doesn't have to be my experience anymore. So I
Did it feel
almost,
different in your body?
like, I felt it in my body, this sense of like, I guess like it felt like a combination of like a sigh, like a relaxed, like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't have to be on stage.
You didn't have to perform.
I didn't have to perform. And I liken that to the same way as coming from America, coming from the UK and going to a new place, because we're always surviving for our environment, right?
Right.
So I think that has been the greatest like awakening, even just still being in Asia, but just so differently. I was like, oh my gosh, like someone's asking me, no one's asking for a picture, no one's staring at me. Like, and the reason why this is connects even to NLP mindset is because sometimes we are responding to what we are accustomed to. And I
Mm.
think that's why the mindfulness piece is so heavy for me, because sometimes we can be so triggered by other things, but it could be triggered from like what we are accustomed to in our sad country, right? Like maybe someone's looking at you because they think you're beautiful. Maybe it's
And
not because,
you're on the defense. Why is she looking at
yeah, and
me?
you're on the
Yeah.
defense. But I
Uh-huh.
feel like it's so good to take that time to be like, whoo, like, all right, it's not. And I say this with compassion, but I think the combination of having compassion for yourself and also awareness is like
Yeah.
a game changer when you're abroad, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then
Okay.
also, yeah, that's been
Those are
just,
some stark cultural differences because
yeah,
you know in America you wouldn't be walking down the street and someone will be taking pictures of you unless you're Kim Kardashian or someone, you know,
1,000%,
no one cares.
1,000%.
Everyone's busy. It's a busy city, everyone's working, getting to the bag or whatever. No one's stopping to take pictures of you, and then now you've gone to another country and now you're like in the spotlight, and it's like, oh, all eyes on me. So how am I supposed to behave? How am I supposed to talk? Am I always like you said, am I always supposed to be on and friendly and smiley and take pictures with them? Am I allowed to be upset? Am I allowed to be offended? Like all of this is the mindfulness and the awareness,
1,000%.
like you said.
It's
Yeah.
so, especially when you're in Asia, where I mean, UAE is also considered Asian, especially in these communities where I like how you mentioned the anger piece. Like, you're not supposed to respond with aggression in these countries. Like, for some
Mm.
of these places, you might be deported, um, or better yet, like no one's going to respond. Like when you're in Asia, like and you're annoyed, you really need to take a couple of breaths. Like you can't respond like in the US, like I'm gonna tell you about yourself, I'm gonna raise your voice. So even that, and there's some moments when you probably want to raise your voice, or you probably want to share your frustrations. And for me, the mindfulness piece and the mindset thing is really when I'm learning to choose my battles. I think having tools, or whether it's a deep breath, whether it's like remembering where you are, that's, I mean, I think that's key, or has been key to my longevity.